I'm standing here with Paul Horsman, who is the campaigns director of the GCCA, or tcktcktck is the public campaign. I guess my first question is, we've just seen Christiana insert the first block into the pyramid, and she's written commitment and compromise on it. So how optimistic are you that we're going to see that here in Cancun?
Well, personally, I'm a constant optimist, and I do believe that we will get some commitment and some compromise. It's the two things that are necessary from the negotiators here in order to get some agreement back on track so that we're actually moving forward to get the treaty that's needed to protect the climate. But for sure, those are two elements that are needed. Whether we get them, I really hope we do, and we have huge aspirations, I suppose, rather than expectations at this stage, and we shall certainly be sending messages directly to the negotiators, making that point that they do need to compromise, they do need to commit to taking action to protect the climate.
You say you've got huge aspirations rather than huge expectations. That kind of stands in contrast to a year ago in Copenhagen at the COP15, the last big talks, where there were certainly massive expectations. What's changed between now and then?
Well, for sure, Copenhagen was a big disappointment to all of us, including some governments. But I think we need to remember and reflect that, maybe our expectations were too high. It was billed by everybody as the moment to save the planet, and those aren't moments that save the planet. But what we did get in Copenhagen were two key things. One was, for the first time, countries actually wrote down commitments to cut emissions. Now, those cuts and those targets are nowhere near enough to achieve what's needed, and so we need to close the gap between what they have committed to and what science tells us is needed to protect the climate. So that's one thing that they did that they hadn't done before. And the second thing they did for the first time, particularly the industrialized countries, is actually put some money on the table that would support developing countries both to adapt to climate change as well as to develop on low carbon development pathways. So Copenhagen was not what we wanted. It didn't give us the treaty that we wanted, but on the other hand, it did give us a lot of the things that we can build upon in order to make sure that we get the elements in place to protect the climate.
It's tens of millions of people around the world have already backed the tcktcktck campaign. What can they do during this next 2 weeks in order to support your hopes for some kind of progress here?
Well, I think we have to remember that people are doing things every day to cope with climate change all over the world. So, that is going to continue because we are all living in a global warming world. So, that will not change. But in specific, whilst these talks are going on, what we are hoping to do here is to have messages from around the world that we can transmit to the pyramid and to the talks here, where we are calling on the governments to make those compromises, to make those commitments that are needed. In addition to that, we will be feeding out information around the world so that people can actually take action themselves. If a particular government is proving to be a bit of a problem, then we can actually send messages back to their capitals and get people to talk to people back there. So there are a whole range of engagements with these millions of people around the world that hopefully will send messages, not just here in Cancun, but also, most importantly, back in the capitals from where these negotiators come from.
Cool. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.